So what is a file path? And what the heck do they even do? Well, on the surface, this will seem rather complex, and I've certainly had lots of students struggle with this over the years I've been teaching this stuff. But the bottom line is it's pretty simple. And so hopefully this video will help explain it in a way that you understand the concept, but just stick with it until you get it, because file paths are a very important concept that work hand in hand with your file organization. File paths are basically instructions to the browser. It's telling the browser, look, you're here, I want you to go over here. I want you to get this file. I want you to go find an image and bring it back here and load it in the page in this location. It's all that stuff. So file paths work in conjunction with HTML code and CSS code to help define the structure and the function of the pages. So what is a browser? Well, a browser is the interface between you and the internet. And so you probably recognize all these logos. So chances are you use one or more of these browsers on a daily basis, probably thousands of times a day. And that was an exaggeration, by the way. That's all a browser is. It's basically called a client, and it's what's delivering the content of the internet to you. Now, to add just another level of complexity here, there are two different types of file paths. The first type is called an absolute file path, and the second type is a relative file path. And what these do is relate to the browser where you want it to go relative to its current location. So if it's an absolute file path, you're telling the browser that you are here now, but you need to go completely out of here and navigate to another place in the internet. So in other words, go to a completely different domain that it is currently within. A relative file path tells the browser that, nope, you want to stay in this current site, but I just want you to go to a different location in the site. So it's giving location relative to the browser's current position. This is a concept over the years for which I've struggled to find a good metaphor, because you really need to relate it to something else to understand what it's doing. It boils down to that it's just talking about going from one location to another. So here's my metaphor du jour, the city of internet. So let's assume that you are the browser at this point, and you are here in this little building with the cute little awning over the door.
You're cute.
And you have been told to go somewhere else. So let's start off by dealing with this in an absolute fashion. So you are currently in this building or in this address, and you need to go out to the internet and go to a different address. So as you know, this is called an absolute file path. It's saying go out to the internet and then navigate to this website called dogs.com. Now, the little slash at the end of this web address here, of this file path, in other words, dogs.com/, that is telling you to go inside. Think of it as a door, and when you see that slash, it's saying open the door. Okay, you have now reached dogs.com, and we're going to add some information to that file path, which will not only get you inside, but take you to a specific location within the web address. So this will be a continuation of our absolute file path. So this first part, www.dogs.com/ is where we started on the previous screen. But now that we're here, we've gone inside the door of dogs.com. We want to tell the browser how to get to a specific location. And so that specific location is going to be a file called weeniedog.html. And so how do you tell the browser how to get there? Well, it's very similar to the first part of the file path. You're inside, so you're telling the browser to now look for a room called breeds. It's going to find that room, and you'll notice that it has a slash after it, so the browser goes inside of the room. Once it's inside the breeds directory, it's being told to look for another directory called shape. It's going to look for that directory, it's going to find it, and there's a slash, so it will go inside. Next, it's looking for a directory or a room called long. slash, it goes inside. And then finally, the very end of the file path says, okay, once you're inside of the directory called long, I want you to get a file called weeniedog.html. And that's it. So this whole very long, intense file path is really quite simple. It's just saying go to this location and then go inside of this folder and then this folder and then this folder till you get to the specific file I would like you to get and to display. So that is an absolute file path if you're navigating from somewhere outside of the site. But what if you were already in the site? So say you had the browser navigate to dogs.com, stopped at the home page, but then you wanted to create a link to get to that weeniedog.html file. Well, you are here. You are already inside on the home page of dogs.com, and now you give very similar information to the browser, except this time it's not an absolute file path. It's a relative file path because you're already at your primary destination. You're within the site you want to navigate within. So at this point, you can tell the browser how to get somewhere, giving it relative directions, relative to where it currently is. And so you'll see it's telling the browser to go to the breeds directory, then to the shape directory, then to the long directory, and finally to that file called weeniedog.html. And so the difference between relative and absolute is really just the difference between are you navigating within the current site you're in, or are you going outside of your current site to navigate to another website. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that this is very much a partnership with file organization. They work hand in hand. They're both equally important. They both need each other. So how does this all relate to your file organization? So we're back on the desktop. And you'll see that there is the site folder that we've looked at before when we were talking about file organization. And inside of these are the files that would be part of the dogs.com website. So I wanted to talk specifically to how that file path related to the actual files you work with. Now, this is on your desktop. It is local. But when you upload these files to your web server, the organization and the structure will be exactly the same. So your file path is really doing nothing more than navigating to the files that are stored on your web server. And so if we look here, here's the site folder. That's the equivalent to the root folder on your web server. Inside of that, here is your home page called index.html. And then you'll see a folder called breeds. So if I open the folder called breeds, if I go inside of it, I'll see here are some other directories. You'll notice that one of the directories here is called shape, so I will click on that. And then we have a series of directories inside of there. And of course, you know the directory you're looking for is called long, so you will go inside of the long directory and you will find a file called weeniedog.html. And so that file path that we looked at visually with the city of internet metaphor is really all relating to this. Just how are your files organized within your site folder and your root directory, and how can you tell the browser to navigate to each one of those files and then do with them as you want the browser to do. Oh, and one last thing. Say, for instance, I took this weenie dog and I moved this to the short folder. What do you think would happen?